Welcome to this episode of M3 Minutes, where we will talk with Alan Reed, president of M3, about his time in the hospitality industry and all his crazy hotel stories. Alan, thanks for being here today. I'm excited to get some stories from our fearless leader. So to get started, can you tell us about your background in hospitality, what roles you've had, what brought you to M3, all that good stuff?
Sure. I mean, it's a long story. My hospitality career goes back to the mid '80s. I originally had graduated in petroleum engineering, and that was, as I said, back in the '80s. And the oil field really is a lot different than it is today. You couldn't get a job in the oil field. No, you could barely even get a job at all. So I was out of work for about 6 months and sent out like 1,000 resumes to different oil companies. So I got to the point I said, it's easier to get a job if you have a job. So I took a job as a night auditor at a hotel. Um, Once I started being night auditor, it wasn't long before I was the guest services manager. And then from guest services manager, and I've done this multiple times in my career, I got promoted to restaurant manager and then food and beverage director. And this was in Natchez, Mississippi, where I'm from. And the highest I ever got there was assistant general manager. And then after I got married, I figured my wife was working over in Georgia, and I figured it was easier for a guy to get a job than it was a girl a good job. Veronica had a good job, so I quit my job, moved to Georgia, and within about 2 weeks, I had gotten a job working for McKibben Brothers as a front desk clerk again. And I had told my wife, I said, "I tell you what, I'm going to see what happens if I don't find a job in the hospitality. I'm going to go over down to Florida State and get my MD degree." My father was a doctor. It wouldn't have been that hard, I don't think, for me to get my MD degree. But once I started working for McKibben Brothers as a front desk clerk, same thing happened. 2 weeks after I worked there, they promoted me to restaurant manager.
It's amazing.
And I worked my way up from restaurant manager to food and beverage director, assistant general manager, and within, I'd say, 2 years, general manager, 3 years of the hotel. And the general manager that was there got promoted to Perry, Georgia, as managing multiple hotels. His name was Bob Emmett. Wonderful guy. Taught me a lot of the things I knew, but he did not like it up in Perry. He liked Southern Georgia, so he moved back to the hotel I was at, and I moved to Perry, Georgia, and it was called the Perry Consolidated Properties. I was over a Holiday Inn, a Days Inn, a Denny's restaurant, Shoney's Inn, which later became a Fairfield Inn,
Mm-hmm.
and the state um, fairs grounds, which was very interesting because you would go 5 to 6 weeks with no business and then have a banquet for 5,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So obviously, to say, I would get creative and use my housekeeping staff as wait staff in
Wow.
those, because you can't staff for something like
Mm-hmm.
that. But anyway, I was in Middle Georgia for quite a while. But from there, the McKibben brothers, Van Herring, would ask me to go to various hotels and check on accounting issues they may be having at a hotel, or if McKibben brothers was in a transition period back then. So they had a bunch of old Holiday Inns, and they were selling them. And they would get me to go to a hotel and run it for about 5 6 months and get it back
Yeah.
in the green, and then they would sell it, and that was kind of fun. But I would also go and help train new general managers, sort of like a bench manager almost. We really didn't use that term back then. That was like in 92, 93, 94, back in that area. But I would go, help train general managers, assistant managers, and things like that. And then I remember I was at the Days Inn. They'd sold the Holiday Inn in Perry. I was at the Days Inn. Um, Van Herring called me up and asked me if I could manage the Holiday Inn up in Swanee, Georgia, which is just right down the road here.
Yeah.
And he said, the general manager has quit up there and I need somebody to come run it. And I said, sure. I said, when you need me up there? He said, about 5 o'clock this afternoon would be great.
No warning on that
Yeah.
one.
So he says, no worries, hotel's for sale. You won't be up there more than 30 days. This was in March. I didn't leave that hotel until December 15th at 3:15.
You remember the
Yeah,
time.
and I can give you some stories on that, and we'll get into that in a little bit. It was a fun hotel. It was an interesting hotel. But while I was there, my second daughter, Kelsey, was born. So it was early in my career, but it was after I'd been there for a while and left, I went back to Warner Robins, and I was the general manager of the hotel there.
Wow. So you've done it all.
Pretty much. I mean, I've done everything I used to do when I was in food and beverage. I would teach, the kitchen staff how to even mop the floor. I said, you're not pushing dirt from one side of the floor to the other. You're cleaning it up. How to wash dishes, all the efficiencies and things like that. So I've done everything from wait tables, wash dishes, bartend, the whole gamut.
That's amazing. So what was the jump from McKibben to M3 for you?
That was another call, but this time the call was from John McKibben, because I'd known him since 1990. And he told me that, Van Herring gave me a heads up first, said, "Hey, John's going to call you." And John called me up and he says, "Alan, I've got this company called M3. You've already been helping us with accounting and working in our other accounting company. I need to see if you can come up and run this business for us. We've got the product. We just don't have anybody to run the business." And I told John, I said, "John, my heart is really over on the hotel side, and specifically on the corporate side. I'd really like to be up in the corporate office instead of running a technology company."
Yeah.
And he says, "I can appreciate that." He says, "What I need you to do is get you and your family." And this was like on a Friday. He says, "I expect you to be up here on Tuesday, and go ahead and just move, and we'll move everything up
And how
for
far
you."
was the move?
The move was from Warner Robins, Georgia, to Gainesville,
Okay.
which is probably about a 2.5 hour drive.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot in a weekend to pack
yes.
up your family.
So yeah, and that's exactly what we did. We moved up, and it was like February, bitter cold. Didn't know where we were going to live or anything like that. So my wife and I came up and looked for a house. And I remember I told her, I said, "We'll find a rental house, and then we'll buy a house once we get up here." We were in that rental house for 5 years.
Hey, that happens.
Yeah, it does.
Time slips away somehow.
But anyway, John told me, he says, "Alan," he says, "give me a year. We've got 3 companies owned right now. It's McKibben Brothers, MMI, and Day Hospitality, which is now Hotel Equities."
Okay.
He says, "If you can get them up and running, give me a year." He says, "I'll let you go back to the corporate office, do whatever you want to, but I have to have these 3 hotels companies up and running." And that was in 1998, and I'm still here.
Yeah, the rest is history because
That's
it's almost
correct.
25 years later.
Yeah.
So I was trying to count as you were saying all these hotels.
Mhm.
How many hotels have you helped run or manage? Do you have an estimate there?
Oh, that would be so hard. Let's see. At the top of my head, it would probably it's at least a dozen.
Oh my
Um,
goodness, yeah.
I mean, everything from, like I said, Denny's restaurants, Days Inns, big Holiday Inns, big full service residence inns, courtyards, the whole gamut.
All of it.
Yeah, and from one end of the house to the other, whether it was from
Mhm.
setting up suite care at a hotel or going through their accounts receivable and trying to figure out. I remember I was a Comfort Inn in Swanee, as a matter of fact, and the general manager had quit there too. And I came up, and Van Herring had said, "Their accounts receivable is just a mess." And I walk up to the front desk, and I pull open this drawer, and there's just a explosion of credit card receipts from I think it was called Corporate Lodging, where the truckers would come in and they give you a credit card.
Yeah.
And there was like 7 months worth of receipts they'd never mailed in. So I mailed all those in and cleared out just about all the backlog. But just running a hotel is really not that hard if you just follow the steps.
And proactive, I'm assuming, is a big part of it, maybe?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've got to be proactive, look ahead,
Mhm.
know what's coming, and plan for things. You cannot be reactive
Yes.
in the hotel environment, or else you're always putting out a fire.
No, I'm sure you were a great manager because you are here. So with running 12 hotels, you have to have some crazy, bizarre stories for us of what you witnessed. So I'll open up the floor for you to give us a couple examples of those.
Yeah, one of them, you remember I told you that December 15th at 3:15, that was the Holiday Inn Swanee,
Yes.
Georgia. I had been up there running it. I got a plethora of stories from that one, but one of the funniest ones, I was in the back office of my office, and the front desk calls me up and says, "Mr. Reed, could you come up to the front desk, please?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Let me come up there." And prelude to this, I'd gotten a call. I was living on property because my home was down in Warner Robins, and I was commuting on the week to work up there. The cook had not shown up that morning, so I had to go up and I had to get breakfast. I had to cook the eggs, the bacon, the sausage. We had a full breakfast. So I'd gotten up and I'd cooked all that, got it going, and I went back to my office, and I was like, man, finally I get to rest. And front desk clerk calls me up, says, "Miss Reed, can you come up to the front?" I said, "Yeah, sure." She goes, she hands me her name badge and her time card and says, "I quit. This lady right here is a bitch,"
Oh no.
and leaves. And I kind of look at the lady, and I said hello, and then there's a guy standing at the counter,
Mhm.
and he goes, "Sir," he goes, "I would just like to verify that lady is a bitch." It
Well,
was a
it was
customer,
verified, so
yeah.
maybe it was right.
And I said, "Ma'am, what can I do for you?" She
Mhm.
says, "Well, I was trying to explain to your front desk clerk, my daughter's getting married a year from now, and I need to know the room numbers of all the guests that are coming." I said, "A year from now?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "There's no way we can give you those room numbers 12 months out. We don't know
Yeah.
who's going to be occupied in a
Mhm.
room or anything like that." And she just kind of gave up and turned around and walked off. In the middle of that, I get a phone call. You've heard me mention Van Herring, from Van
Mhm.
Herring, and he starts asking me some questions about the financial statement. And so I'm trying to ask him. And while I'm talking to this lady and I'm talking to Van on the phone, my administrative assistant, she kind of meekly walks up to me and slides me this piece of paper with a note. And I'm like, I was like, hold on. So I open up the note, and it says, "There's a guest in the breakfast room complaining there's no more eggs."
We need Chef Allen back.
Yeah. So, and this was like right at 9:45, which is when we
Mhm.
closed breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm on the phone with Van. I said, "Van," I said, "I've got too many things to deal with. Let me call you back in a little bit.
Mhm.
I'll talk to you." I look at the lady behind on the other side of the counter. I said, "Man, there's nothing we can do. I can't tell you what room we're in. You guys are going to be a year from now." Lisa, who's my administrative assistant, I said, "Go close the bar or the restaurant.
Mhm.
We're done." And then I called somebody up to come work the front desk and went back to my office and just retreated to grab my breath.
Yeah, you're like, "I'm
And
gonna stay here the rest of the
yeah,
day, not making the eggs."
hmm
And weddings can bring out the worst in people and the
yeah,
best, so I'm not shocked that happened
yeah.
about the wedding.
It's yeah. I mean, it's just weddings and hotels. You can go
Mhm.
round and round with that.
Yes.
So another interesting. I told you when I first started with McKibben Brothers, I was food and beverage
Mhm.
director. So this was in Thomasville, Georgia, close enough to the ocean where you had to do like seafood buffets and things like
Okay.
that. When I went there, they had a seafood buffet that was like $4.95, all you can eat, and it just had a bunch of frozen
Like
seafood.
$4.95.
Yeah, that
Oh,
included sweet tea.
good bang for
Um,
the buck there.
yeah, man. So it was all frozen food we cooked, and people liked it. But
Mhm.
the general manager there had asked me to up the game and really make it a nice buffet.
Yeah.
So I went out and got fresh seafood, decorated the thing, and I charged like $12.95.
Mhm.
It was all you could eat crab legs, jambalaya, fried shrimp. I mean, just the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And at that hotel, we actually had what you call soft serve ice cream.
Mhm.
So, after your seafood, you always want something a little sweet or something like that. So people always love that ice cream. You just kind of you fill it up from the top and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, during the day, and this was on a Friday, we would do like fried fish that day,
Mhm.
and one of the soups we would have is clam chowder. So at the end of the day, when things not cooked, you pour that clam chowder into a big bucket, you
Mhm.
let it cool, then you stick it in the walk-in refrigerator. Well, we kept the refills for the soft serve ice cream in the same refrigerator.
Uh-oh.
And in the middle of the night, during the shift, it got real busy. I told somebody, I said, "You need to go fill the soft serve." I said, there was it's a clear bucket, and the clam chowder is white, and the soft serve is white. Somebody had gotten the clam chowder and poured it in the ice cream
Oh
machine.
no.
Never heard a complaint all night. And the only reason I knew was because the next day, I went to start up for lunch,
Yeah.
and the bucket with the soft serve ice cream was in there, and the clam chowder was gone.
So did you get to try the clam chowder flavored ice cream?
No, I did not. I did
Okay.
get several compliments on how good the soup was, or the ice cream was that day.
Well, I think you
Uh,
just discovered a new ice cream flavor then.
yeah, it's a clam chowder, soft serve ice cream. But
Oh
yeah,
my
that was funny.
goodness.
I mean, things like that happen. It's
Yeah.
in the heat of the moment. If you're in F&B or food and beverage,
Mhm.
things happen real quick when you're doing that, and you just go with the flow.
Well, at least your guests liked it. And
Yes.
$12.95 for a buffet,
hmm
I'm all for it because I
Yeah.
think that'd be with unlimited crab legs today,
hmm
probably approaching $50.
Yeah.
So, did you ever have a guest that was extremely rude to you or extremely nice, just went out of their way?
Yeah. Well, I tell people all the time, everybody should work in the service industry at one
Mhm.
time, so you understand how people react.
Yeah.
And all of us that have worked in the service industry, we're typically generally nicer to people that are behind the counter
Yes.
or the waiting tables, because you're always going to have that person that's mad. And it usually revolves around one or two or three things. One, you don't have a room for them and they came to
Mhm.
check in.
Yeah.
Two, they don't have any money and you want it from them, or you ask them to check out.
Yeah.
Or three, their room's dirty, and they
Mhm.
weren't expecting it.
Yes.
And you just have to stay calm,
Mhm.
deal with the person, and work through it. I mean, I've had people threaten to climb across the counter and kick my butt, and I was like, dude, you're not near big enough. I mean, I'm sorry. The reality is, I know I'm a bigger person now, but when I first got married, I was really into working out and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But you just have to stand your ground. I had it was in Warner Robins,
Mhm.
and we did a shuttle service to the airport, to the Macon airport, for the ASA pilots. So they would fly in, they would
Okay.
spend the night, or we'd go get them. They spend the night at the hotel, and I was working in the back office,
Mhm.
and I hear this pilot just chewing out one of my front desk clerks,
Oh, no.
up and down one of us. I said, "Sir, what's the problem?" He goes, "We've got to be at the airport in 15 minutes and y'all don't have a shuttle and blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Well, that's because the crew ahead of you was late also. We
Mhm.
took them and we're just coming down here, but you're not going to talk to my front desk clerks the way you're talking."
Yeah.
He goes, "I will pull the contract with y'all." I said, "Here, let me pick up the phone. I'll do it. What's the number we want to call to cancel this contract with Delta Airlines?"
Oh
And he was
no.
like, So sometimes you just got to call the bluff on the
Yeah.
customer.
Yes.
Other times they have a legitimate reason, and you
Mhm.
just have to work with them.
Yeah.
But that one I sticks with me because it's a gentleman, the captain of an airplane.
Had no say in Delta's contract.
No, and they think they're when they're in the plane, they're in
Mhm.
charge, but when they're on the
Yeah.
ground, nobody has the right to talk to people that way.
E Ever. Yeah,
Yeah,
completely agree. So, rumor has it you met your wife in the hospitality industry. Can you tell us how that happened?
that is correct.
Okay.
um, that was actually, I think I was a guest service manager. I may have been a night
Okay.
auditor back in Natchez, at first hotel I ever worked in, Natchez, Mississippi. And I remember I was working the front desk. I remember the
Mhm.
very first time I saw my wife, she worked up the front desk. She was applying for a job
Yeah.
as an administrative assistant.
Mhm.
And because I remember she asked for my boss, and my boss was standing right next to me. And I was like, "And why do you need to talk to him?" She says, "Well, I'm here for a job interview." I said, "Oh, well, go sit over there and
Mhm.
I'll get him to come meet you."
Yeah.
And so she went back to her interview and got hired, and she became
Awesome.
the administrative assistant, which was actually over the guest service manager. So
Okay.
I actually worked for my
Yeah.
wife at that hotel for a couple of years,
Mhm.
and that's where she got a job for J.C. Penney a couple of years later. Got transferred to Georgia,
Awesome.
and then a week before we got married, I quit my job and moved out to Georgia, and that's how I
Yeah.
got to working for
So
M3. That was 1990.
so a long time.
Yeah,
Congrats on that.
thanks.
So love at first sight, would you say?
When I met my wife, it wasn't. I think I knew her for 2 weeks, and I told everybody I knew that was the woman I was going to marry.
Oh, I love that. A little love story for all the listeners today.
But yes, it was love at first sight. There's no doubt.
Awesome. Yeah, Veronica's amazing.
Mhm.
So what side of hospitality do you like working on better? Do you like working on this tech corporate side or the guest facing side?
It depends on. I love doing what I do now,
Mhm.
but I absolutely loved working on the guest service side.
Yeah.
This 86 as the assistant general manager, my office was at the front desk. Not at the front desk, but in the lobby.
Mhm.
Back then, in those days, the general managers, the AGMs, they were all in an office back in the middle of nowhere. You never saw them.
Yeah.
But I loved being out in the lobby, talking with the customers,
Mhm.
interacting with them, working with them
Yes.
and things like that. So, and Residence Inn took that. I mean, all Residence Inns or general managers' offices open up to the
Mhm.
lobby,
That's
right?
good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I kind of think maybe I was a trendsetter back
Mhm.
then, but I loved working with guests. I'm a very social person. And when I first came to M3, I mean, it was all just a bunch of brainiacs. I mean, they're all, just typing stuff, and you didn't get a chance to interact with them
Yes.
and things. So I really missed it. It took several years. It wasn't until I started going out in the field and
Mhm.
traveling with Rick Frommer, our first sales
Yes.
guy,
Yeah.
that really got a little bit more fun because then again, I got to go talk to customers. And still
Mhm.
this day, I still have a hard time taking what I call my manager's hat off. I look at something and I'm going like, why are they doing that? And I got to remind myself, it's none of your business, Alan. That's not your business.
No,
It's
I
their business.
I completely see the resemblance of what
Mm,
you're saying in the hotel world and how you like
mm.
seeing guests because I've seen you walk around the office and just talk to people. So I think you're just a people person.
Yeah, I do like that. I used to have a button on my phone when I was at the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody called me in the hotel, it would flash a message back to them that would say MBWA.
MBWA. What
Yeah,
does that say?
management by walking around.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so just I would, if nothing else, just get up, walk around, talk to your front desk clerk, talk to your
Mm-hmm.
restaurant employees, talk to the housekeeping staff.
Yes.
You know, and in the hotel industry, the general manager is responsible for the everything that goes on at the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So the cleanliness of the
Yeah.
rooms and things like that. So I would go out, typically inspect, 10, 15 rooms a day myself, just to
Yeah.
see. And one of the things I used to do, I used to love, I would take like 25 $1 bills,
Mm-hmm.
and I would get a housekeeper and I'd go in the room and I'd give them all $25.
Okay.
And then for every deficiency I found, I would take $1 out of their hand.
Oh no, but I'm
Yeah.
sure eventually there were no spots that you had to take away.
There's always something generally,
Yes.
but
Okay.
it was my way of teaching them,
Mhm.
like one of the things I would check was the light bulb on the lamp, make sure that there's no dust on it.
Oh.
Somebody
Yeah.
reaches up, turns on the light. Back then, there weren't light switches everywhere, but you had to turn the knob
Yeah.
and dust fall off on your hand.
Mhm.
Make sure they wiped off the phone. Cleanliness was real big. Look in
Yeah.
the drawers, make sure nobody left any clothes, or behind the
Yes.
bathroom door, make sure there wasn't a towel hanging
Mhm.
up
No,
or
that's
something like that.
great. As a guest, cleanliness is one of
Yeah.
my first things. So
Mm.
before we get into debunking some hotel myths,
hmm
do you have any other stories you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Oh goodness, I'm trying to think.
Do you have any good M3 stories? What's your funniest M3 story if you have one?
I mean, I have some. I don't know if they'd be funny to other people. I remember when I first started working with M3.
Mhm.
There was like 6 of us.
Yeah.
And we had a problem where when people would print, it would just take down our servers and
Mhm.
nobody could log on.
Yeah.
And in the hotel, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Mhm.
365 days a year.
Yeah, doesn't stop.
And people are sleeping at your hotel, so now there's an issue, you have to take care of it.
Mhm.
So we had this printer issue, and we're sitting there working at it, and 5 o'clock rolls around. And I look up, and all my programmers are getting up and walking out the door, and I was like, "Whoa, where are y'all going?" They said, "Well, it's
Mhm.
5 o'clock." I said, "And?" And they said, "Well, we go." I said, "There's no 5 o'clock guide rule that says you get to go home at 5 o'clock.
Mhm.
Our program is not working." I
Yes.
said, "You get to stay until it's fixed."
They're like, "Yay."
Yeah, we had it fixed that night.
Hey, there you go. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So with all those crazy stories, do you have any other good ones for our listeners to know about?
So, I was at that hotel up in Swanee,
Mhm.
and my wife was having her second child, Kelsey, and she calls me up this middle of the week and says, I'm going into labor and I'm heading to the hospital. So she's in Warner Robins, Georgia, which is about 30-40 minutes from Macon, the hospital. I'm in
Mhm.
Swanee, Georgia, which is probably about 2 hours typically to where she's going.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody at the hotel, I said, I'm leaving. My wife's having a baby. I'm on my way down there. She leaves. I leave. Fastest drive of my life. I meet her at the hospital as she's entering the hospital.
Oh my goodness.
So I made it to Macon in probably right at about an hour.
The need for speed.
Yeah, the need for speed, which is kind of crazy because this was 95, 96.
Mhm.
Back then, and everybody knows traffic in Atlanta, but if you could hit the road in Atlanta by 3 o'clock, there was no traffic.
Mhm.
So this was right about that time. And it was crazy in Atlanta. If you left at 4:30, you were just stuck. But if you left
Yeah.
before about 3:15, because that's
Mhm.
usually on Friday when I would leave about 3:15,
Yeah.
you could get on down through the middle of Atlanta with no traffic. So I hit the timing right. I was down there, but it was just. I remember when I showed up at the hospital, she kind of looked at me and she goes, "How'd you make it here?"
You get Dad of the Year.
Yeah.
Husband of the Year. All
Now
of
she
the
does
above.
tease me now. She goes, "We did wait a little bit before we left. We didn't leave as soon as we hung up the phone."
Oh, I
But just the
love
fact that I met her in the parking lot
yes.
as they're going into the hospital.
That's
which
amazing.
is
I'm glad
crazy.
you made it.
Yeah, me too.
Did you make it to all 4?
Huh? I was at all 4 of my children's births.
100%. 100%. There you go. Awesome.
Yeah, but they were all hotel related.
Yeah.
Megan, I was working at the Holiday Inn in Thomasville when Megan was born.
Mhm.
I was working at the Holiday Inn in Swanee when Kelsey was born. I believe I was working at the Holiday Inn in Warner Robins when Hannah was born.
Mhm.
But no, I was working for M3 when Claire was born.
So the transition had happened.
Yeah, she was born in the Gainesville
Well, I'm sure you were a busy guy
hospital.
raising
Yeah.
4 girls, and that's an amazing story. Any other ones?
You know, one of my first stories, and this is at the Thomasville
Mm-hmm.
Hotel. We used to do this big elaborate buffet on Sunday. We,
Yes.
we'd do a carved roast, and I was the restaurant manager or the food and beverage manager, so I would always be at the end carving the roast. And I remember the day before, that was on a Sunday. On Friday, and I must have been the general manager or the assistant general manager. My executive housekeeper comes up to me. She goes, "Mr. Reed," she goes, "I just want to let you know I was going to this room, checking on it. You remember I said I'd inspect hotel rooms, 15. Well, she was inspecting rooms. Excuse me. She goes, "I went in this room. There's a guy sitting at the desk talking." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I knocked on the door, but, I didn't realize there was somebody in there." She goes, "So if you get a complaint, that's what that was about." Like, all right. I just kind of marked that up in the back of my head. That was on Friday. Sunday, I'm sitting there carving the roast beef, and at the end of the table, and Susie comes up to me, and she goes, "Mr. Reed, I need to talk to you." And so I got my assistant. I said, "Can you carve the meat while I go talk to Susie?" Susie goes, says, "Mr. Reed, you know that guy I told you about on Friday that, I went in his room?"
Yeah.
She goes, "Well, I went in there today. He's still sitting at the desk."
Oh, no.
And I was like, I looked at the front desk and said, "Y'all do me a favor, call 911, just ask them to come on out here." So I said, "Give me the key." She that was a mechanical key. So I said, "Give me the key. Let's walk back there." So I go back to the room and I knock on it. Nobody answers. Open the door, and there's a guy sitting at the desk. I mean, he's got his head on his hand, just sitting there. And I said, "Sir, are you okay? Sir, are you okay?" And I didn't hear anything. And I walk around, and when I walk around the other side, I could tell he had passed away.
Wow.
And I looked at Susie and I said, "Susie," I said, "this gentleman has passed away. He's not here." And she goes, "Oh my goodness." She goes, "I've been talking to a dead man."
What a,
And she goes, back then it was the old U-shaped Holiday Inns. And this was like a square where the pool was in the middle of that.
Okay. Yeah.
And all the rooms surrounded it. She goes running out in the courtyard going, "I've been talking to a dead man for 2 days. For 2 days I've been talking." I had to go in there. I almost had to tackle her.
Oh, I'm sure
"Susie,
she was
stop.
out of her mind after realizing
but that was that was the first time I'd ever found a person that had passed away at a hotel. But in my career, that's probably happened to me at least 3 times.
Wow.
And that's another thing people don't realize is in the hotels, quite often people, usually it's older gentlemen. In this case, this is a person that was a pharmacist that just passed away. He left a note, a wallet, and like $20, and said, "This is for whoever has to clean up, afterwards," and things like that. But you deal with that.
Life goes on.
Life goes on. You deal with the happy side, and you deal with the sad side. And that's one thing as a front desk clerk, you kind of have to keep an eye out for things like that. But that's happened to me multiple times.
Wow, you've definitely seen it all. Okay, so there's a lot of myths hotel visitors come across, and one of them, a lot of people wonder if hotel employees can stay at the hotel for free. Now, I know you did as a GM, but did any of the other employees get that perk?
Depends on which hotel you're at. The short answer is no.
Okay.
But you remember the hotel I told you I left December 15th at 3:15?
I do.
A lot of those hotel employees stayed at the hotel. That was memo number 3 for me.
Yeah.
Memo number 1 was when I first got there. It was about 11 o'clock at night. Remember I said, "Can you be there by 5 o'clock?"
Yes.
I didn't get there till about 11 o'clock. I walk in the front door, and the night auditor is behind the desk on a bar stool with a TV propped up on the desk, smoking a cigarette.
Oh, no.
I said, "Yeah, I need to check in." She goes, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm Alan Reed. I'm the new general manager." She goes, "Oh," didn't even bat an eye. And I said, "I need to get rid of that bar stool, turn the TV off. We don't smoke behind the front desk, and I need you to button up your ascot."
I love it.
So rule number 1, memo number 1 from Alan was no smoking behind the front desk on a bar stool.
Yes, or probably in the hotel at all.
But anyway, so memo number 3, I was looking at something and the guest ledger or something. I noticed I saw several employees on it. And I said, what is that? And they said, well, the employees get an employee discount and get to stay at the hotel. So none of our employees stay at a hotel, at a hotel we own.
Yes.
So I actually had to write a memo. I ended up with 23 memos, I think, at that
Were
hotel.
they, like, was the hotel booked and they were taking rooms, or was it a slow night when they were taking the rooms? How did that pan out?
It was both, but
Okay.
the hotel was
Yeah.
was booked a lot back then. That was the Holiday Inn in Swanee was the
Mhm.
first sports bar in all of Gwinnett County.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was the
Okay.
first bar to be able to sell liquor in
Yeah,
Gwinnett County. So
That's crazy.
it was very busy.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, hotel employees, if you're spending the night at a hotel, it's not a
Mhm.
great thing because it means you're working like a double
Yes.
or triple shift and you need to
Not
go to
fun.
sleep, wake up and work another shift.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for debunking that one for
Mhm.
us. And then also, can any hotel staff enter any of the rooms? Do they have access to do that?
They do not. Hotels keep a very detailed key log. Who
Mhm.
has a key, when they have it,
Okay.
when they enter a room, and when they return the key.
Yeah.
I will say the first hotel I was at, the Best Western,
Mhm.
um, and that was in like 86,
Yes.
85. We had mechanical keys back then, where you
Okay.
stick the key in the door and turn it.
Gotcha.
Kids nowadays don't even remember those. But, every hotel had a key making machine because, guests would leave with the keys.
Yes.
So I'm sitting there. I checked in a guest, and the guest came and says, I went to the wrong room. I said, well, how do you know? And he said, well, there was somebody in the room. I said, well, how'd you get it? He goes, I put my key in there and turned it.
Yeah.
I said, let me see that key. So back then, you look at the key, and it would have a big hump at the end,
Mhm.
which means that was an E key.
Okay.
That key will unlock the door even if it's dead bolted.
Oh no.
And so I just kind of looked at the guy. I said, oh, let me see that key. Let me see I can get you another room.
Mhm.
And I called up my maintenance guy.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, look at this key. He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, we ran out of keys. You're supposed to keep a master key. That's the
Mhm.
original key to the lock.
Yeah.
And you never give that key out because you got to make copies. He goes, well, we
Mhm.
ran out of masters. I didn't know what to do, so I just started making e-keys.
Oh, that's not safe.
No, that is not safe.
That gives me a heart attack.
Yeah. No, I had to stop, had to have the entire hotel rekeyed for and this is like in 86. This is like $3,000 back then.
So was that memo one at
Uh-huh.
at that hotel?
That wasn't really a memo. That was more like a disaster.
Yeah. Oh my
But
gosh.
typically, no, you don't.
Yeah.
And that key, the E key, now it's it's just like an electronic key.
Mhm.
Typically, what a hotel does is they have a red box with a
Mhm.
glass on it,
Yeah.
and you have to break that glass to get that key
That's good.
because
That's
it's called
a
an
good protocol.
emergency key. That's the only reason you use that key.
Yeah.
But and nowadays with technology, once a guest checks out, their key card's not any good, and we also put time limits on the housekeeping keys.
Mhm.
But I've seen lately where they have these electronic boxes, and it's tied into the employee schedule and stuff, and they can go out and get their key that's assigned to them.
Oh,
So the
okay.
technology has really picked up on that
That's
end.
good. That's very good. So also, the latches that are on the back of the door,
Mm-hmm.
is it possible for people to get in using those? Other than kicking down the door itself.
Yeah, I mean, you can kick it down the door.
Yeah.
Have you ever? It is, but it takes a really good set of tools.
Okay.
But that's whenever I go to a hotel, the first thing I do is I throw the deadbolt and I throw that latch
Me
because for the
too.
most part, but it depends. If a hotel has like the two little prongs
Mhm.
that hold it
Yeah.
or a chain, a hotel will have a set of bolt cutters.
Gotcha.
So if something happens to a guest, you still need to be able to get into that room.
Mm-hmm.
So, so if a guest was stuck in a room, we'd have the bolt cutters. We would use the E key to open up the deadbolt.
Mm-hmm.
Then we use the bolt cutters to cut the security latch.
Okay.
And you
Got
can do
it.
that in under 5 seconds.
Okay. That makes sense.
And I've actually had to do that before for somebody that was trying to commit suicide by overdosing.
You've seen it all.
Yeah.
You've seen it all in the hotel world. So since you've seen it all,
Mhm.
what do you wish guests knew?
I mean, we're all just normal people. I mean,
Mhm.
we aren't holding any secrets.
Yeah.
We want you to enjoy yourself, to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have, um, we all live normal lives.
Yeah.
We're all normal people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you come in at 2 o'clock in the morning, 12:30 at night, and you're tired.
Yeah.
Probably the person on the side of that counter's tired too.
Yes.
So, just treat everybody with respect.
Mm-hmm.
We all have our own life journeys,
Yeah.
and we're all in a different spot on them.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can just all, respect each other and be nice to each other, just makes everything go a lot smoother.
The golden rule: treat
Yes.
others how you want to be treated.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, with that, do you have anything else you'd like to add for our listeners to know today?
It's the hospitality industry is a highly addictive industry.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get into it, you may move from one hotel to another, but you're
Mhm.
always going to meet somebody that you've known before.
Yeah.
So one of the golden rules in hospitality to me is never burn any bridges. It may be
Absolutely.
10, 12 years down the road, but you're going to meet somebody you've worked with.
Yes.
So, hospitality, I love it. It's a niche
Mm-hmm.
community. We all know each other. We all appreciate each other. We all just want to serve each other.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever meet a hotelier, you know it right off the bat because
Yeah.
they're very accommodating, very
Yes.
hospitable, and they just want to please people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing all these crazy, fantastic stories. And we can't wait to have you back here soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of M3 Minutes. If you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe.